Hello, everyone, and welcome back towards our first track, second session already. And today it's going to be my great pleasure to introduce a very gifted speaker, somebody who I had the pleasure to listen to a number of times before, Mr. Kurt Bergmans, who is the VP of IT Service Management at the Adecco Group. In this session, Kurt is going to share how some of the world's largest organization in IT service management is going to be using automation in the day-to-day global IT shared service center. And he's going to be presenting some of the lessons learned. Kurt, it's really a great pleasure to have you back with us today. Floor is yours, and I look forward to your session.
Thank you, Jan Willem. Can you see my slides? Is everything working
Yes.
audio-wise?
Yes. Your slides perfectly.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Jan Willem, for the introduction. And it's a great honor and pleasure for me to be a speaker at the Automation Days Asia event. My name is Kurt Bergmans, and I've been working in IT service management in various regional and global leadership roles for the past 25 years. And in my presentation, I will share with you the role of automation to drive digital transformation in IT service management. And actually, I'm going to start already with the conclusion of the presentation, and that is that automation is actually just a means to an end. Yeah? Digital transformation is not about automation and implementing new technologies. The successful transformation in IT service management requires an approach that includes not just the technological aspects, but also requires transforming the operating model, the business processes, as well as the people and culture of an organization. Now, the world in which we work is very volatile, as you see. We've had the lockdown in the last 2 years. We've got the war in Ukraine. We've got the rising energy prices. And this all impacts how companies respond to rapid changes in customer demands. So the objective is not just to automate the work, but to transform the business into an agile organization, as the future is uncertain and we want to be able to adjust and adapt when requirements change. So it's all about building agility, not just, let's say, just automation for automation's sake. As Jan Willem mentioned, I'm the Vice President, Global Head of IT Service Management for the Adecco Group. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Adecco Group, we are the world's leading talent advisory and solutions company, and we're headquartered in Switzerland. And from a global staffing and requirement perspective, we are the number 2 behind Randstad and ahead of Manpower, who's the global number 3. Here you see some statistics. So we operate in 60 countries. We've got over 38,000 people working for us with an annual revenue of 21 billion euro. And we're called the Adecco Group because it's not just the Adecco brand itself. We actually operate under multiple brands in various markets. And our main lines of services, so the HR services that we provide, is flexible or temporary placement is the majority, but we also do permanent placement and career transition and outsourcing. And we have an office in Malaysia as well. We actually have a global business service here based in KL for the Asia region, as well as a global business service in Mexico and in Prague to provide 24/7 support to our business. And I actually want to start with a poll. Is it possible, Jan Willem, to open up a poll?
Have a quick look. Yes.
I can't.
Let me, on the right-hand side, let me see if I can launch that.
Let me know if it works, because I can't see it from my screen. Maybe.
Okay. I think from the system we would need to launch it from your side. So in that case, I'm gonna quickly recommend probably to skip it.
Yeah, I will. It was actually just, let's say, a light opening of the session itself. And my question actually is: you see this gentleman sitting high up in the middle. It looks like he's reading kind of newspaper, and just have a look at it and think, so what would the job be of this person? Is he the boss? Is he a team lead, a manager? Is he a security guard? Or is he a kind of entertainer? And when I first saw this picture myself, I thought, okay, that's an interesting one. It looks like the manager is sitting high on top people in this factory, it's rolling cigars, and this guy is just sitting there reading the newspaper, being the boss. But it's actually not the case. This is actually an entertainer. And it's actually called, the job is actually called a lector. And a lector is basically simply means someone who reads. And these lectors were often hired by money pulled together from workers to read in large rooms full of manual laborers to keep them entertained. So this is the way they got their news from the newspaper, by having a lector reading it to them while they were working. And I think it's a nice example of a job that has eventually been displaced by technology and by automation. Initially, maybe with when the radio came up. And I think if you compare it to nowadays, the entertainment, let's say at work, would come maybe from Spotify or Facebook, etc. So again, this is a nice example of a job that has been displaced by technology and automation. And currently, we're in the fourth industrial revolution, as you know. And like what happened during the previous ones, this will result in job losses, where human labor will be displaced by technology and automation. But it will also create a lot of new jobs. And if you read the World Economic Forum in their Future of Jobs report in 2020, they've basically estimated that by 2025, so at that time when they read it in 5 years' time, now we're already almost end of 2022, 85 million jobs will be displaced by a shift of division from labor to automation. However, at the same time, they estimate that 97 million new jobs will be created. So in the end, we might actually have more jobs because of the fourth industrial revolution. But having said that, it will lead to more income inequality, because a lot of the automation, of course, will take place in the low end, let's say blue collar laborers, and the new jobs will be created in the white collar labor. So although there will be more jobs, hopefully, it will lead to further income inequality. And I want to spend a bit more time on the fourth industrial revolution and why we should care, as all of us are affected by it. And it is basically driven by four specific technological developments. One is the use and availability of high-speed mobile internet, AI and automation, the use of big data analytics, and the emergence of cloud technology. And we call it the fourth industrial revolution, so that basically means we've gone through three of these revolutions before, but there is a big difference this time. And that's that changes are happening at a pace that we've never seen before. And the emphasis here is indeed on transformation. Yeah? This is not about transitioning, this is not incremental changing, it is the profound transformation of existing business models and how organizations interact with their customers, with their employees, and with their stakeholders. And therefore, we often refer to it as digital disruption. Now, if you see the definition of digital disruption, it's basically a change that occurs when new digital technologies and business models affect the value proposition of existing goods and services. And companies that do not embrace this new disruptive reality are at great risk of becoming obsolete. And you see that actually back already. If you read the Fortune 500, and you compare that list of Fortune 500 with the list in 2000, you will notice that half of the names of the companies have disappeared from that list. And the main reason is indeed these new digital business models and automation. And these emerging technologies are now becoming basically mainstream. And that also means and leads to the fact that stability and predictability are a thing of the past. We're now moving towards a state of continuous change, where the future is uncertain and we need to be agile in our response. What we also see is that basically every company is now becoming a technology company. I've worked in oil and gas, Shell and BP for many years. And if you talk to the CIO and CEO there, they are talking about being a technology company with a license to drill for oil and gas, but at the core, they're a technology company. Likewise, in banking industry, they are driven as a technology company with a license, let's say, to have banking, to sell banking products in the various countries. And even today, as I said, I work for an HR solution company. But if you talk to our CEO and CIO, they will also say we are at the core a technology company. So the successful companies will recognize the opportunities to do things drastically different. Again, this is not about transition or incremental change. It is about transforming how you operate and your way of working. So many companies see the need indeed now to transform. However, before you actually embark on this digital transformation journey, you need to have a reason why you need to change. So every company, before you start on this massive change, you need to have a very clear purpose of why you need to change. This purpose needs to be well documented and well understood by all your employees. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to be successful. It's also equally important to make it clear maybe to your employees what would happen to the company if you decide not to go for digital transformation, with the risk indeed of becoming obsolete. So for us in Adecco, the world of work is changing radically, and we see accelerating trends that demand new solutions. So today we are the world's leading talent advisory and solutions company, driven by a very powerful purpose: making the future work for everyone. And to address these shifts in demand in the very volatile market, we needed to adjust our ways of working. So we launched a new strategy and transformation program called Future at Work. And this Future at Work is guiding our company for the next 3 to 5 years and preparing us for the future. So the key, let's say, transformation enablers for us are customer experience. So putting the customers at the center of everything that we do. And that's just not our clients, but also, of course, everyone, the temporary staffing and permanent staffing that we have, and everyone working with us. The differentiation as well. So we need to have a sustainable 360-degree value proposition that really harnesses the power of our end-to-end HR ecosystem globally. A lot of our big customers are global customers, and we need to make sure that they give the same experience dealing with us in Malaysia or in Europe or in Mexico. And the third one is indeed digitalization. So we're amplifying our work with technology and data by developing world-leading digital products and improving our IT infrastructure, and really start harnessing the data that we have across the group to give us a competitive edge. And the main thing indeed, again, what's clear to us as well, if we would continue to operate like we have done for the last decades, it won't bring us where we need to be. So this really requires an overhaul of the existing ways of working and start unleashing the potential of automation, big data, and advanced technologies. So going back, let's say, to my own area of IT service management, how did we start, let's say, our automation journey as well as the new ways of working? In 2021, we started a group-wide program called Skywalker. And the purpose of the program was to mature the service management function and implement new global IT processes across Adecco. And the key deliverables for the last 2 years, some of the successes were indeed, so we've implemented a global command and control center, including major incident management, as well as 24/7 monitoring of our core applications and infrastructure. We really started using automation in that command and control center in our discovery and monitoring tools, as well as the automated responses in any event management, as well as incident management. We also migrated dozens of our local service desks into one global service desk, using ServiceNow as our key IT service management tool. And also there, in those global service desks, we started implementing automation. Just an example is the chatbots that we've implemented that can answer questions to our users and also can automatically raise tickets for users. And last but not least, let's say we've implemented new service management processes. So initially, 2 years ago, we only had 5 core IT service management processes like incident problem change management. We've now leveraged that to 16 global processes for service management, including service transition, software asset management, and service continuity management. And one of the main results that came from all this, let's say, maturing our IT service management across Adecco is the increased stability of our environment to the business. So when we started 2 years ago, just in the first half of 2020, we had 600 hours of outages. If you compare where we are today, we're 75% less outages to the business, which translates directly to a 33 million euro of cost avoidance to the business. So it's definitely benefited the business that we now have a much more stable environment by having these ITSM processes and organizations in place. Now the next phase is, of course, stability of IT. That's great. That's the foundation. Now we need to see how we can become a much more agile organization. And therefore, in IT service management, we are taking the holistic approach to look at the people, the processes, and the tools. So the next couple of slides, I will highlight, starting with the processes, then the tools, and then with the people, how we get to our next generation of those aspects. So when you want to become a highly digital and agile organization, it's not just about implementing the new technology and automation, as I said. It requires a holistic end-to-end approach that includes people, processes, and tools. And I will start here with the process part, using my own area of IT service management as an example. So we started by reviewing all the existing service management processes and identifying non-value added activities using the lean methodology to identify waste. We then simplified and standardized the processes. We removed the duplication and the non-value added activities before we brought in automation. And the approach was implement automation where possible, using human intervention only where required. Now, if we're talking about automation of our processes, it's not just about RPA. It's especially also using platforms like ServiceNow that gave us the opportunity to automate a lot of the manual workflows. And we actually use this process transformation to rely less on these reactive SLAs, where at the end of the month, you can see, hey, did we meet our SLAs, yes or no? And instead start focusing on value creation and customer experience. So we also changed the way of working as an organization itself in service management. We define new roles like service owners, like product owners, and Scrum Masters. And we start building these small new teams that basically own the entire development, delivery, and management of the new services and products in IT. And that meant that in the end, our ITSM processes are now much more agile than they were before. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, but this is a journey, this is not something that you do in 3 or 6 months' time, is that we're moving away from being reactive and transactional in service management to becoming much more proactive, predictive, and preventative by using, let's say, ServiceNow and a lot of the monitoring tools as well. So we're now able to predict where things might go wrong, and we can hopefully fix issues before they become incidents and impact the business. So that's from a process perspective. As I mentioned, we also changed the way of working. So we've got now much of the smaller virtual teams working together on the development and implementation of new IT services and products. Yeah? And to enable those virtual teams to collaborate in a world where people either work from home or they work remote, or they work in the office, or they work indeed on the other side of the world, you really need to have good collaboration tools that can share data amongst the people, give access to applications from any location and any device required. And if we're talking about the next generation of tools, I think there's 2 key aspects to it. The first one is cloud-based or cloud first. Why cloud? I think security is one of them. If you just see the amount of money that companies like Google or Amazon or Microsoft spend on a yearly basis on security, that's way beyond what other companies would be able to do themselves. And it's not just about spending more on security, but they have, of course, things like multi-layered security and data encryption built in their cloud solutions. Another benefit, of course, is the scalability of cloud and the rapid deployment of infrastructure or applications in the cloud. I think we all know the days that if you had to order a new server and some new storage for a new application, you were talking weeks, if not months, before it could actually be implemented and up and running. And now, of course, with the whole virtualization and with the cloud, you can basically add compute and storage instantly. Also, the compute power enables us to use IoT and big data analytics. So all these cloud vendors basically have their own built-in data analytics tools that you can use when you subscribe to their services. And another big benefit, I think, is, of course, it's the consumption-based model. So you move away from these big CapEx investments upfront if you invest in your own data centers. But you start making it into an operating expense. And also you can regulate the expense because you can shut down systems overnight or in the weekend if you don't need them. And another important aspect is, of course, from the environmental perspective as well. So by moving to the cloud, you're actually reducing carbon emissions of your data centers by 88% if you compare it to the cloud data centers. So that's the reason for cloud. Then the other one is indeed using shared platforms. So to improve the agility and collaboration and integration, reduce the number of applications across Adecco, and we move to a smaller number of reusable IT platforms. For ITSM, our core platform is ServiceNow, and we've been using that for close to 10 years now. And it really enables us to start automating the process workflows. We've also created a center of excellence for ServiceNow, but also for the other platforms, where we manage the access and availability while the product teams from the business can define and build their requirements and their own solutions on these platforms. Now, another advantage is that often these platforms are low-code platforms, and that means you don't always need highly trained developers, but you can actually start training people to become citizen developers that can build and test and release new functionality rapidly. I think another important thing for us is indeed that they connect very easily with other tools, third-party tools and platforms via APIs. And by actually connecting various different applications, you can actually start creating new business for your company. So what are the tools that we use? I think the most common tools that other companies use as well. So for the cloud, for us mainly it's Azure. In our front office, it's Salesforce. If you look at the office environment, it's all running on Microsoft 365. And as I mentioned, we use ServiceNow for ITSM and Teams for our collaboration. So I've touched upon the processes and the tools, and I think that brings us to the most important one, and that's the next generation. I call it the next generation of people. And I just want to take one step back. I've been working in Malaysia for 17 years now, and the majority of those years I've been working in a GBS or shared services environment. And I've seen the evolution since 2005 when I came here to where it is today. And the GBS organization is very important for the Malaysian economy because we've got over 600 companies that have set up a shared service or GBS organization in Malaysia, and it provides employment to over 250,000 people. So when we look at the companies that have their GBS here in Malaysia, most started off as a shared service organization that performed back office activities. So the initial idea of having a shared service in Malaysia was to support the business by providing transactional and back office activities at a cost-efficient way. Eventually, we moved from supporting the business to enabling the business when the shared service organization transformed into global business services that moved beyond the basic transactional work. A GBS has expertise to deliver and incorporate high-value functions in the process, such as data analytics and consulting. With the rise of automation and integration, we're now at a reflection point that we can create new business. So you see the evolution from, and let's say the scaling up in value from supporting the business, enabling the business, and now at an inflection point of creating new business. But it also means that the people that you have need to have very different skills of what was required years ago when it was very back office and transactional related. So we're training our people in new ways of working, being, let's say, in Agile, DevOps, or Scrum. We start empowering the people to start working in smaller teams and give them the ability to make decisions that reflect their own area without having to go through layers of approval, because that just slows things down. It also means collaboration between multiple teams, and as I said, these might be virtual teams in other locations across the world. So it requires a new way of working where it's not just related to being all together in one shared service environment, one location, but actually working in multiple locations during multiple time zones across the day. It also means that we're training people up in these new technologies, and it could be indeed in the areas of RPA and automation. It can be data analytics or cloud technologies. And we all know that there's a big scarcity in people with these skills. So if you plan to hire cloud engineers or data analysts or data scientists, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to find them in the Malaysian market or in most markets. So the best option you can do is start upskilling and reskilling your existing staff. And that's where automation can help then as well. If you can automate the mundane activities that people do, you start actually freeing up capacity. And with that capacity, you can start training your people. So that's basically what's happening with the people in the shared services environments. Now I want to conclude my presentation. This is my last slide. So we do use automation in every aspect of IT service management. In the processes, we simplify, we standardize, and we automate our processes. In our tooling, we implement ITSM tools that automate the workflows in the monitoring, in event management, and in incident response. And we automate the manual activities where possible, so we can start freeing up the team to focus on higher value activities by, for example, the use of chatbots. And also from a data perspective, we automate data collection into our CMDB, which will improve the quality of the data and also make this data available real time. By having real-time data that is of high quality, basically means you give a lot of information back to the business. And based on that real-time information, they can start making, hopefully, the right decisions for the business to go into. But I also want to reiterate again that if we're talking about digital transformation, it's not just about automation. We're in a very volatile environment at the moment. And to weather any disruption, we need a blending of new technologies as well as an agile mindset and an agile workforce. Automation is just a means to an end. Digital transformation is not about automation and implementing new technologies. A successful transformation in IT service management requires an approach that includes not just the technological aspects, but also requires transforming the operating model, the business processes, as well as the people and the culture of an organization. And if we look indeed at our future at work strategy in Adecco, this requires a holistic end-to-end approach, including the people, the processes, and the tools. What I mentioned in the beginning as well, before you start on your transformation journey, you need to have a very clear purpose of why change is required. And this purpose needs to be well documented and well understood by everyone in your organization. And it's also very important that you make clear what the consequences are if you decide not to change the way you work. So you need to focus on what the transformation means for your employees, for your leaders, and for your organization. So the main thing is we need to build an agile organization, which requires a cultural and organizational change. It also means less focus on processes and compliance and more focus on value streams and customer experience. And the main thing indeed is automate where possible, so you can free up internal talent for higher value activities. And it also requires a very different type of leaders. Yeah? The command and control hierarchical leadership is not going to work in the future way of working. Yeah? We need really human-centric leaders that set the vision and the direction of a team or the organization, but how it's done should be actually led by the people who do the actual work. And that means indeed you need to empower your people at all times. And the main thing as indeed main way of working from, let's say, human-centric leadership is you become a coach and a mentor to your team. You need to inspire people to get on board and start feeling empowered. Yeah, and your focus is need not telling people how to do their job. It's to look at what are the skills that are required, technical skills and ways of working that are required in the next 6 to 12 months. And do I have those skills within my team? And if not, can I start upskilling my people? And last but not least, most of us, I think, we're all employees working for a company. We really need to start building and becoming resilient. We need to be able to deal with and embrace change. As I mentioned, change now is constant. Yeah? Whatever your job is today, it will be different in 6 to 12 months. And whatever your org structure looks today, it will be different in 12 to 24 months. And there's even a fair chance that your job might be obsolete in 2 or 3 years' time. So you need to continuously, let's say, adapt to that change and embrace it, and start becoming a part of the change. And that means you need to be able to collaborate with teams and people around you, people with maybe very different skills and backgrounds than yourself. It's not about the individual contribution; it's what you can contribute to those teams. Yeah. And the last thing maybe I want to focus on is indeed to have that growth mindset. Yeah? Continue to learn, because whatever technology you know today, it might be obsolete in 3 to 5 years. So continue to learn and try to get the opportunity with your manager that hopefully supports you to start testing proof of concept pilots of new technology and see if indeed there are use cases within your organization where you can apply those new technologies. And some will work and you can roll them out hopefully globally. And some will fail, and then you learn from it and you move on. Yeah. So if we can galvanize our people around these new ways of working, our future at work can be sustainable and bright for us. So I thank you for your time. This was my session on digital transformation and service management, and I look forward to any feedback or questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Koert. This was, as always, a very, very excellent presentation. I think what you're managing is a tremendous operation with a lot of various aspects that are coming into play. So a very, very inspiring presentation with some real life examples. I think the audience agrees with me, because while you were talking, a lot of questions came in on the site. Let me pick out some of them, because we still have a few minutes that we can do that. I'm going to get started with one of the first questions that came in, and let me project it on the screen. The question is asking, you showed the maturity evolution in stages. How do you measure maturity of automation?
That's a good question. I'm sure that Jan Willem is much better in a much better position to measure automation. So at the moment, let's say we don't have that measurement on automation. We do use it for service management using the CMMI score,
Okay.
Where we basically know indeed from a scale to 1 to 5 how mature our processes are. I'm not aware that we use, let's say, a measurement of maturity in automation within Adecco.
Yeah, I think if I can build upon that, I think indeed using some kind of a CMMI score could be useful if you want to get some similar approach than that what you showed in the slides. But I think most organizations at this moment, they just look at what is the time that we spend before automation versus after, or some of the efficiency gains. And I think that if you want to get some showcase of proof of how automation is helping, then you will probably need to look more at efficiency figures than so much maturity.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we measure indeed.
Yeah.
The before and after.
That's a good question. Then let me go to another question, which is from Rico. I'm gonna project this as well. It says, can you share about Adecco methods on automating training? Not quite sure what the background behind this one is, but do you automate training as well, or
Indeed, it depends on what the question is meant. So automating training, well, of course, we have what we call our tech university. So all our, if we're talking, let's say, for IT service management, all our processes and the use, let's say, of how to use ServiceNow to raise an incident or approve a change, etc., that's all automated. So that's available indeed in videos, and people can just subscribe to it. If we're talking about maybe the methods on how we train people in automation, that depends indeed on what kind of automation. As I said, as part of the tools, for example, we use ServiceNow. So then is it more, we train people on how to do automation and automatic workflows in ServiceNow. Indeed, if it's RPA, we use UiPath. So we do have training for people in UiPath, etc.
Good. Yeah, Rico, I hope that answers your question. You can always ask some follow-up questions either in the chat or in the box. I hope that kind of addresses what you meant with this question. And then I see one other, maybe last question for today. I think this is one of the classic ones, but maybe you can share a little bit of light on this, given the size of the organization that you have. And that is the question, what's your advice on how to overcome the fear of automation? And I think that's a very relevant question.
It's definitely a very, I think in general, people have matured. So I think if you would have this question maybe 5 years ago, people would say automation is a risk to my job, that directly risk to my job. I think we're now at a stage, and again, this is not Adecco, but I think just globally for the majority of especially the big organizations, they all are at the stage of automation. And I think if you start with some small use cases, and people see the advantage that it brings, you get also more acceptance, and you get to a point, as long as people understand this is not taking away my job, it's actually making my job much more interesting, because it's especially all these mundane activities of reviewing approvals or copy pasting stuff or whatever it is that's happening today. If I can just get rid of that kind of simplified non-value added activities by automation, it's good for the business and good for the customer experience, and it basically means I've got much more time to start spending on value added activities. So the initial fear of automation, I think in any company I've worked for so far, has been quickly replaced by, if you have one or two cases for a team and they see the benefit of it, then suddenly people come to you yourself and say, hey, I'm the process owner for change management. Why don't we automate this, this, and this? And yes, the benefits are definitely there. And from a business perspective, it's also very clear. They really don't like all that manual activity. So anything that can automate that manual work for them is a bonus.
Yeah, I think I also agree with the fact that acceptance of the fact that automation is going to change the way that we work and the way that we do that has become way more standardized. So I don't think that fear is as large as you just mentioned. What I also really thought was a very excellent point in your presentation was on your last slide, you mentioned around the resiliency of people and the fact that you kind of need to agree to the fact that things will be changing, and whether it's through automation or any other kind of technology or any other kind of form, the world of IT is just going very, very fast. And so I really thought that was a very excellent and clarifying point. Good. As a last point, I see Rico is coming back in the chat with a little bit more explanation. He says what he meant was just-in-time training. So how do you proactively determine and deliver the necessary training to the team, if any?
Again, yeah, good question.
Yeah,
there's different ways, and again, Jan Willem working with Cyber and then training, I think you got a much better view. But even for us, I think indeed, let's say with education, it's the 70-20-10 rule. So 17 is training on the job. It's just by doing your job, working with other people, you build up skills. Then the 20% could be, if I look internally, indeed, it could be coaching, mentoring, it could be online training that we have, as I said, within our own university. And that can be indeed training about automation, if that's a specific one. And then we have in 10% where we say we go to external training providers and we go for certification.
Yeah.
And that would be indeed the automation training.
Yeah, I think that's a very good division of how people should do it and how they could prepare for situations they've probably never seen before. Good. That brings us towards the end of the time, also the end of the questions. Before we say goodbye, I would like to ask everyone to give a big round of digital applause to Kurt. I always find your sessions really, really inspiring because it shows how do you apply a lot of these best practices in real life situations. And it's not so much around the theory or a process design here. This is actually work on a very large scale in a very, very large organization. So thanks so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be with us today. It's been excellent having you again on Automation Days. So thank you so much for being with us. It's been a real pleasure, Kurt.
It's been a very much a pleasure for me as well. Thanks, Jan-Willem, and good luck with
Thank you much. We will do that. So before we close the session today, let me very briefly show what's coming up next for everyone. Again, as I mentioned in the start, there is a 3-track program today, so you're going to need to make a difficult choice again. In track number 1, which I'm going to be moderating, we will be welcoming Navin. Navin is from the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, MDEC, and he is going to be talking about a very specific use case on how automation is empowering the AgTech sector, which is the agriculture and digital sector. I had to dive into AgTech a few months ago, and I think that this is a very fascinating topic because it's really showcasing how technology is transforming every industry. And Kurt mentioned it as well during his presentation, whether it's an oil and gas company or a big bank or a resourcing company. Every organization is shifting towards a technology company. So Navin is going to be explaining how automation is also changing agriculture, which is a very, very traditional business. Then in the second track, we're going to be listening to Marvin. Marvin is from Cloud Vision, and he's going to be explaining how digital transformation is going to be using with enterprise automation. So more focused towards the way organizations are changing through automation. And then on track number 3, Chi Kin is going to be speaking. Chi Kin is also a very gifted speaker who has been doing many, many lectures over the last few decades. I think he's actually lecturing even today. And he's going to be focusing around how to use automation as the right tool and doing it in the right way. So once again, a very difficult choice you need to make, but choose your session and then move towards that next session within the next few minutes. Thanks again. And once again, Kurt, I would like to thank you for your participation today. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.